Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. You mentioned a little bit ago about how you use social media. Man, probably 15 years ago, I was listening to a podcast. I can't even remember the name of the guy. But he said, if you're a coach and you're not actively using social media to promote your program, you're behind. And as a competitor, I thought, I don't want to be behind. And so I started to, on the limited platforms back then, but then I branched out. And so what are some ways that you use social media to enhance your program?
Man, so we have a staff meeting every Monday morning, and every Monday morning, let me rewind. My last staff, and I say the start of the 1920 season, I had a guy that he had been blowing me up, wanted to be on my staff, wanted to volunteer. He never coached before, and I'm like, dude, he lived in Addison. He just graduated. His mom lived in Addison, and so he was like, I want to get into women's basketball. And I said, if you're willing to drive every day from Addison to Commerce, that's fine. You can.
What's that drive right there?
Like an hour 10.
Yeah.
And the dude did it the entire year. I give and Will Watkins, I give him a lot of credit because he left, and I'm gonna get to where I'm going, but he left our place after a year of volunteering and became the grad assistant at Eastern New Mexico. Then went from Eastern New Mexico to a $50,000 job being the video coordinator for University of Wisconsin. He's from Wisconsin, so that was his dream job. Then he just left Wisconsin. He's now employed by the Dallas Wings. The guy's like 25 years old. So backtrack to him. I had 6 coaches on my staff. I didn't really have a use for them. I didn't know. I went from like one coach to 2 coaches to 5 to 6. I'm like, I don't know what to do with you. I said, your job is social media. And then it gives some other things, but like your main job is I need graphics. And they got good. Some of the coaches got good. But when my GAs left that year, I said, the next coach I hire, he's got to give me a social media plan for the year. And he's got to be able to do, he or she's got to be able to do graphics. And so we got to the point after we hired a young man, every Monday, that's how we started our meeting. So we prayed, talk about academics, then social media plan. And so some of the things that we did was, we had a young lady on our team this year named Mackenzie Schott, and we had Mac Mondays, and she was like 5'2", and she bought a tiny mic and she hooked it up to her phone, and she would walk around and ask funny questions to her teammates, or she'd do things. And she was somebody that was a player that was down the line as far as our depth chart was. I thought had a chance to really be good down the line, but we had an All-American point guard in front of her that had some years left, and so. But I loved it. I loved her, and I wanted her to be engaged, and she's just funny too. And so we had talked about her doing a social media show, and she took it and she owned it, and that was one of my favorite parts of our social media this year. We always try to highlight birthdays. We always gonna do a half court shot on game days, so we always put that on social media. One way, and we thought about this a few years ago, but we always want to emphasize defense. And so we have a defensive player of the game after every game.
Not an offensive player.
No. I mean, you already know that, I just believe we want to reward our top defenders. And so you see sometimes on our graphic, it'd be 8 rebounds, 5 deflections, and a charge. And well, charges and deflections aren't going to show up in the stat sheet. Anybody can pick up the stat sheet and see who had a good offensive game.
Yeah.
But you don't know who had good defensive games. And so we wanted to make sure we highlighted people that don't normally get highlighted. And that was one thing that we try to be intentional about doing. Birthdays. We want to highlight alumni, especially we do a thing called Empower Hour in the fall. Empower Hours when we bring in a guest speaker or a coach may be speaking that day, but we're going to spend an hour trying to pour into or empower our young women. We want to equip them to be successful down the line. And so, that was one thing we always want to highlight, the Empower Hour speaker that came to speak to our team. There's clips from practice, highlights from the games. I can go on the line, but
let me ask you about highlights. Do you do highlights after losses as well?
So what we got to the point where we did highlights of the week.
Okay.
More than anything. And
that's good. That's a good idea.
Big plays from the week. Because sometimes you're on the road.
Yeah.
And for us, and you can't get it down the road, but like on Monday, we can get done the highlights from the previous week. And
I like that.
And so that was one thing that we try to do. I think we did a lot of good stuff, man. We were very intentional with our social media, but we wanted content coming out every day. That was one thing. We wanted to be very visible on social media for recruiting purposes. I really think that's how some of our coaches got noticed as far as jobs, because you were just, if people were following social media, you always saw us. And our coach Garcia, he started doing the Don Staley challenge. When Don Staley starts retweeting his tweets, you got the hottest coach in the country retweeting our brand, because she was doing.
What's the challenge?
So she got to the point, like, this is like January, February, she started doing a trick shot. She'd be in these gyms and she'd be in the stands and shoot a shot, or she'd shoot a backward shot, or she'd do whatever. And so these coaches would start recording themselves doing it, put it on social media. Well, the very first one that she retweeted, he did it at home, and there's a big lion head right behind our goal. And so all you see is, and it got on ESPN. And so you see our brand on ESPN because Don Staley retweeted it, and I'm just like, it's genius right here.
A big takeaway though from this is I mean, whatever the college NBA programs are doing trickles down, college programs, it trickles down, and some great ideas here for coaches at any level. But the fact that you're so intentional, it's in your coaches meeting, along with the other things that people associate with winning. But you also, that the value of that, I mean, that's huge.
I think graphics sometimes can take some time to do. And so if you're trying to do a graphic at the last minute, especially when you're trying to really be good about the brand of your graphic, so when you're waiting to the last minute to do something, you have other things to do, it just can be time consuming in your day. But if on Sunday or Monday you're thinking about what I need to do this week, or if you're thinking weeks in advance, like the more we started doing it, the more he started looking ahead. Yeah. Like, hey, next month, National Women's and Sports Day. Next month, we have the 4th of July. We got Christmas. So when you start thinking about the holidays that you want to put out stuff, and or you start thinking about birthdays, and you go ahead and do graphics ahead of time, and you have them ready to go. And I thought just the more intentional we were with certain things, signing day is coming up. Boom, the recruiting shutdown, whatever it is. Or we're about to be on the road, we're going to this city, like, we started being intentional with our stuff, and it just helped us be organized and to get out good quality products all the time.
Yeah. One thing I've done, because I use Photoshop and to do our graphics on, and so occasionally I'll have coaches ask about, what I use. And so Photoshop, I'm not creative. Like, I can't create anything from scratch. I'll give a shout out to our head girls coach at Faith, Hannah St. Pierre. She is incredible with Photoshop, and she can create her own or take just from someone else online and build it herself. Once I get those files, which are PSDs, from there, I am competent enough on Photoshop to change colors, do some things. But that's just a trick, because you're right on the money. It's so time consuming to do all those graphics. And so if you are a coach out there that thinks, I just don't know how to do it or what, that's a way. Like, ask people to send PSDs or their templates, and that way you can insert your logo, do some things, and that's just maybe that'll help.
So one of the cool things that we got out of our Empower Hour this year, one of my former players is the lead graphic designer for the Dallas Cowboys. So she put out some fire graphics this year. Like if you go and look on, I don't know why I just drew a blank on our linebacker's name. I mean, Michael Parsons.
Yeah.
She's done some really dope ones of him. She worked with the NFL before that. So like last year when Aaron Rodgers got MVP, she had a really nice one of him. She had one for Stephon Diggs when he broke whatever Bill's record was last year for receiving. Yeah. I think she just had some incredible graphics. But Micah Parsons always refers to himself as a lion, and so she's got some really good ones with like a lion and him, and so our the guy that does all of our video and a lot of our graphics, when I introduced him to her, and she's like 27, our guy is older than her. He was like a kid in a candy store.
Oh, I bet.
A chance to meet her, because when she showed him some of the things that like she's done, he was like in awe. She's like, I've been trying to do this and this, and they were talking a whole different language that I didn't understand. Yeah. But it was cool to see that dynamic happen.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.